Hey folks, Dr. Baker here. Let's talk about some ingredients that are common to our food that are either slowly killing you or in some cases might be quickly killing you. So we'll break down 3 of the worst offenders. Stick around to the end, I'll give you my overall impression on this, but let's look at some of the ingredients you should consider removing from your diet. So number 1, the so-called seed oils. Now, as the name implies, seed oils are oils that are extracted from seeds. Now, these seeds typically are, the oil that's contained in these seeds is typically sheltered. It's blocked out from light. It's temperature controlled. It tends to be cooler, and they're not designed to be exposed to the atmosphere, to the air, to the light, to the heat, and that's exactly what happens when these seed oils are manufactured. When we see things like fancy walnut oil in the store, they often say you got to refrigerate it so it doesn't go rancid. Now, the longer they sit on the shelf, the more problematic they probably are for us. And so when we think about how these things are processed, during the initial processing, they are heated up to quite high temperature. This automatically will oxidize some of the oil. That often will give this a very sour or rancid type of smell. And so in order to mask the smell, the manufacturer will often, once again, reheat the oil with a deodorizing chemical, which will give them a more of a quote-unquote pure, at least smell or flavor to it. So this means at the very least these things have been oxidized at least 2 times. And so there's a high level of omega-6 fatty acids in there. Some people and some studies suggest that high levels of omega-6 can be damaging to our health and somewhat inflammatory. Potentially, at least some studies suggest that can be problematic for liver, heart, autoimmune, brain, and other places. And so ones you might want to consider removing from the diet include sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, rice bran oil, walnut oil, grapeseed oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, and any of these other foods made similar with these oils. And you can replace those oils with things that I think perform better and taste better. Butter, lard, tallow, duck fat, goose fat, ghee, things like that. The second common ingredient, and it's everywhere, is sugar, right? So there is essentially, other than calories, there's really no nutrition in sugar. The sweet taste certainly stimulates a pretty profound insulin response, spikes in insulin, and then a dramatic dip downward arguably are problematic. So this makes you often on this cycle where you continue to have hunger and cravings, and you're back and forth trying to deal with that. So often drive an overeating pattern, and so people often overconsume as they get in that physiologic state. So chronically triggering these hormones, cortisol, which can often lead to unwanted, unneeded weight gain and unbalanced satiety. So this may make you want to eat even when you're not hungry. In fact, certain sugars like fructose can directly cause damage to the liver. And when eaten in excess, certainly we see joint pain related to gout from high levels of fructose and autoimmune flares for many people. This includes even some of the natural sugars. So things like fruit juices, honey, maple sugar, maple syrup, and certainly the processed sugars like high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, dextrose. And so you may want to consider removing those from your diet and stick to whole foods, meat, fat that comes with it, and for those that are including things like vegetables in the diet, some above ground, non-starchy vegetables. The final ingredient, grains. Grains can be very problematic. We are often told we need to eat 7 to 10 servings of grain. Often they say whole grains versus refined grains, but I think grains as a whole can be problematic for a lot of people. And so whether they're whole grain or not, they all have anti-nutrients in them, oxalates, phytates, lectins, which can potentially compete with absorption of nutrients and leach out some of the nutrients from the body. They can cause gut irritation and inflammation, which can lead to the so-called leaky gut system. It can be very stressful on the body, particularly when they're hyper-processed and they're made into little powders. They become even more problematic for this, not to mention the fact that it can cause significant swings in blood glucose and insulin spikes associated with that. So removing all of those, including grains such as amaranth, barley, bran, buckwheat, bulgur wheat, corn, farro, millet, oats, sorghum, spelt, quinoa, rye, teff, tricktail, wheat, and then processed grains like cookies, crackers, breads, cupcakes, snack cakes, cereals, and pastas. What are my thoughts on this? I cannot say definitively without question that any one of these ingredients is absolutely bad. The evidence does not clearly support that. However, clearly eating things like donuts, which basically is a combination of all 3. It's refined grains, it's sugar, and it's oils. They're fried in oils typically. They're made of grain, and they're obviously got a lot of sugar in them. That diet is clearly damaging to our health. So if you remove those individual ingredients, you will also remove those very problematic foods from the diet. All right, that's it for now, guys. We'll talk to you soon.